Welcome to today's event. My name is Louise Guillot. I'm a reporter at POLITICO Europe. I've been covering sustainability and circular economy policies for the past 2 years, and you're watching POLITICO Live. In today's event, which is presented by eBay, we are going to discuss how to bring circularity and sustainability to e-commerce. But before we start, I have some housekeeping remarks. If you're joining us online, you can watch this event on our event website, but also on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. While you do, feel free to get involved and to don't hesitate to ask questions and also to tweet about this event, so you can tag us and participate by tweeting about it using @livepolitico on Twitter. You can also ask questions using Slido with the hashtag #eCommercePolitico. When you do ask questions, please indicate your name and organization. And you can also vote for the question that you think are more interesting or you'd like me to prioritize. There is a little summed up next to the questions that are submitted on the platform. So if you're following on the event website, Slido is embedded under the live stream window. And if you are following us from Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, you just need to open the Slido app on your phone or your computer and use the hashtag #eCommercePolitico. Feel free also to respond to the poll presented by eBay, which is available on Slido and which should be appearing on your screens. We'll look a little later at the result of the polls. The question is the following. European small business sellers using eBay point to sustainability as the top motivation for selling non-new items. How much of their current sales do you think secondhand and refurbished products represent? So we'll now hear a video message from Jamie Iannone, Chief Executive Officer of eBay.
Thank you, Politico, for hosting this timely discussion. It's great to be with you all today. I want to start out by referencing our roots as a company. More than 26 years ago, our founder, Piero Midyar, created eBay as a way to connect and empower people through global e-commerce. And his first sale was a broken laser pointer. From that moment on, we've been a key player in the circular economy. We bring people together around items that still have meaning and value, enabling millions of sellers to find income through objects they no longer need, and giving new life to used goods for hundreds of millions of eager buyers. eBay has also enabled small businesses to grow even more through circular commerce by facilitating access to spare parts for repair and to refurbished devices that still have years of useful service left, therefore increasing resale opportunities. Recently, we released a supplement to our first ever re-commerce report, which was published earlier this year. This update draws on survey data collected from our European business sellers, sharing their interest and capability to advance re-commerce more broadly. As part of this update, we've learned that almost 4 out of 5 of our surveyed eBay European business sellers have sold items that are not new. These sellers told us that secondhand and refurbished items represented over half of their total sales, which shows just how much is happening on our platform. Notably, among all of our surveyed European sellers, the most mentioned motivation for selling used goods was sustainability, ahead of consumer demand and ahead of profitability. We are all conscious of the need to tackle climate change, and we know that our small business sellers join us as we seek ways to ensure a sustainable future. And I believe climate action can be combined with greater opportunity for growth and employment throughout Europe. There is increasing buyer demand for secondhand, refurbished, repurposed, eco-designed, and repairable goods. But we also know that more needs to be done to ensure that our sellers are able to meet this demand. Increasing operating costs, ongoing shipping challenges, and numerous other complexities disproportionately affect small businesses, particularly micro businesses. In this environment, we need to reduce burdensome regulations that have negative consequences on sellers' bottom lines. Legislative proposals currently under review in the European Parliament could make it harder to sell on online marketplaces. These would stifle the economic opportunity that platforms like ours offer entrepreneurs across the EU. As a result, These proposals would also impede the growth of circular e-commerce overall. I believe that we can foster the success of the circular economy with the right policies. Policies that can provide a stable and protective legal framework for European small businesses, while also securing greater trust from consumers. One such example is the European Commission's new Circular Economy Action Plan, which specifically calls for products to be designed so they're both more durable and easier to repair. The plan also proposes increased access to spare parts and repair information so that small businesses can refurbish and resell used electronics and goods, providing another avenue for small business growth. eBay welcomes the opportunity to contribute to this important work. We understand the need to meet this moment in time with real action. Again, thank you for taking the time to be here with us today. We hope this event provides useful insights and debates on this crucial initiative. Thanks.
Thank you very much for this message. For today's discussion, I'm very pleased to be joined by 4 distinguished speakers. Rosalina Petrova, member of the cabinet of Environment Commissioner Virginia Sinkevicius, who's notably in charge of implementing the Circular Economy Action Plan that was just mentioned. Thibaut Hugues de la Rose, co-founder and CEO of the company Back Market, who sells secondhand and refurbished electronic products, notably. Paul Jonas, co-founder and CEO of the company Revive, which also sells secondhand products, but this time more bikes, things like bike and furniture. And also, last but not least, John Mark Simon, Executive Director of the NGO Zero Waste Europe. So I think I've all been in this situation when, our phone breaks, falls into the toilets, or at least I've been, or the computer, the battery of your computer stops running after 2 hours without charge. And, it's often more expensive to repair those products than buying new ones. It's, however, not really sustainable because it requires the extraction of raw material to make these new products, but also emits greenhouse gas emission from the manufacturing process, from transport, etc. So, and also, most importantly, consumers are more and more asking for products to be more sustainable, more durable, easier to repair, easier to recycle as well. The CEO of eBay just mentioned it. So I'd like to start maybe with you, Paul. If you could maybe just explain to us a little bit more about the context of this market for second-hand products. So how has this market been developing in the last few years? And what are the challenges that you are facing with dealing with the refurbishing of furniture and bikes, especially in your case?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me, and hello to everybody. So we basically started in 2015 with our company Revive, and we initially focused on the interior market, purchasing, upholstering, and reselling those goods, which was a very unknown market. At the time we started, there was pretty much no vendor in there. There was no market proof or anything like it. In the beginning, mainly books or media products were dealt in a circular economy way. So we took on this market, and over the last 5 to 6 years, we saw pretty intense growth there, and the willingness of clients not to only buy it offline in a store, as one would think, with big and expensive goods like design furniture, but we saw a big movement of our customers buying it online, for example, on eBay or online shop and other markets. So like a main observation that I would make, that the customer is moving to more openness from only buying secondhand goods, which are kind of cheap or very easily trustable, like a book, to more complex products like expensive electronics, like big goods like interior, where a lot of trust is needed. So when I look at some statistics which we review on a regular basis, we can see that at least for Germany it counts that 50% of customers bought used online in the book market, and already like 25% bought secondhand products in the interior market. So it's a substantial amount of people who are already are open to this. Which is great, and it shows big movement and scalability there. And speaking about challenges that we have as a vendor, as a company who offers those products, it's mainly about on the one side getting spare parts and getting help from manufacturers to be able to actually certify that a product is authentic, that we are able to use like spare parts that are manufactured by the manufacturer, to really being able to certify that it's as new. Vendors sometimes, or like manufacturers, are often not too open to help out. So this is one of the issues we have. And another issue, I'd say, it's more a bigger consumer economic thing, competing with cheap products that are cheaper than our secondhand refurbished products, because in the end consumer is very budget sensitive in most cases, and the customer does not look at the lifetime value of a product, or if he would need to buy a new product every year, and in comparison with an upholstered quality product, he would only need to buy one in 3 years. There also is a challenge to compete with those cheap things, which in the first place seem to be a good catch.
And Thibaut, let me turn to you now. So back market sells secondhand electronics. Is there any other particular challenges associated with those kind of products? And also, how do you ensure that the products you sell on your platform are safe, and how do you also explain to the consumers that maybe they are more sustainable, or at least more included in a circular mindset than new products, obviously?
Thanks for having me. Well, about the challenges, I'm just going to repeat a little bit what has just been said. We sell a lot of refurbished electronic devices throughout Europe and the US now, but so the demand is on the rise. People want to consume better. They want to have a positive impact, and sustainability is growing within the mix of intention of purchaser significantly, which is a great news. Challenging are mostly around the supply and the ecosystem of professionals or refurbishers that actually deal with the repair and the refurbishing process of the product, because they don't have access to spare parts from manufacturers. They are not available for them, or sometimes when they are available for them, they are so expensive that it kind of creates it's too expensive to repair, so I'm just going to switch for a new one, which is not right, and which is not a good answer for the climate and for the customers who have the same interest, basically. So accessibility to spare parts is the biggest pain point, I would say. Number two would be the right to repair for a customer. Today, when a customer has a product and he wants to keep it, like my headset, for example, we have tons of lithium in the batteries of the products we're using, electronic products. But today, repairing and replacing batteries requires a lot of skill set. And so it would requires me like 5 hours of repair time. The battery is plugged to the motherboard in this headset, for example, or it's almost impossible to replace it on your own with a MacBook. So you need to give accessibility to repair to the people. So circularity is challenge number one, and you can solve it with access to components that needs to be done. And you also need to make sure that customers, when they want to repair and keep their product, they have a solution for it, which is easy and not too costly.
Mm-hmm. So the right to repair. I'd like to turn to Rosalina on that point, because the European Commission wants to indeed present an initiative sometimes next year, I think. But you'll be able to tell us a bit more about that on the right to repair, and indeed help consumers have access to spare parts, more durable products. How can this right to repair be translated into concrete terms in people's daily life? What does that mean? And what is the Commission planning to make that a reality?
Good morning, everybody, and thank you very much on my side as well for organizing this discussion. This aspect of our green agenda is very important, and what is here also quite exciting is that when we talk about let's say more durable, repairable goods, the right to repair, and also the cross-cut with the e-commerce, we are really talking about this green and digital transition that we would like to encourage as much as possible, and also to see how actually both trends can empower each other. So I'm very much looking forward to the debate, and already the insights that were brought by my interlocutors were very, very telling. So why is it good to talk about all these second hands? It's because actually, and how it will affect the lives of people. First of all, of course, when we have more use, more repair, this brings local jobs. It also provides a lot of cost-saving opportunities to people because they can actually save, not buy new goods, buy used goods, but still of high value. And of course, it's always good for the environment, because producing new goods has quite a hard, heavy footprint on our environment, on our planet, and it's very good to encourage actually longer lifespans and better use of products. So if I have to start, where does, because I see that a lot of what goes about the quality, the trust of consumers in the second-hand goods, and I think that what is the most important for the quality of the second-hand good is the quality of the first-hand good, and this is what we are trying to approach with our sustainable product policy initiative, where we would like to make sure that products are more durable, that they are also repairable, of course, in a economically efficient way. So that is all those elements which were touched upon. So this will really create the basis for prolonging the life of goods. And then, of course, we would like also to, next to making sure that the goods are fit for use and repair, we would like also, of course, to empower consumers to choose these products and be able to choose them. So this is where we have a number of initiatives coming up. One, we are going, the Commission, it's our colleagues working on consumer rights. We'll come up with it very soon. We are expecting it in December, where we will actually strengthen consumer rights with information on repair services, spare parts, repair manuals. This is all included in the Circular Economy Action Plan. And then we will have a very concrete proposal already in December on this consumer information part. Then indeed what is one of the most exciting elements of it all, and what immediately caught the attention and the headlines when we presented the Circular Economy Action Plan last year was this right to repair. And the fact that it got so much attention shows also that it struck a chord with consumers. It touched upon a very important question, and which is linked to the frustration of everybody of us that indeed we have a valuable good, and then a small part of it breaks up, and we have to change it completely. Or when we call about repair, then indeed it said that because of the model or the spare parts, this is something which is difficult to ensure. So that is something which we will be working very intensively on from different points of view, and it's too early to say how the final, let's say, landing zone on ensuring from various sides that goods are repairable and actually repaired would look like. But there are many actors also to play in here, and this will be also just, and here is where I will finish, and then we will go with some more specific questions. This will be also, this part of the circular economy is also very important for the social economy as well, where we will also come up with initiatives. So I stop here. Perhaps this is a very quick overview of the policy landscape that touches upon those matters. And for the rest, I will be very interested to hear also indeed what are those main barriers. We already heard about some of them. So getting spare parts, competing with the cheaper products. But these are exactly the things that we have to very well analyze and see what are those policy levers at EU level that we could best use to address them. So thank you.
So thank you, for this very good overview. And so I'd like to turn to you, John Mark. What's your wish list? Rosalina asked for feedback on what are the challenges, what can be done as a member of civil society working for a long time now on the issue of waste and circularity. What would you like to see in this new initiative? If we can be as concrete as possible, I think that'd be great.
Thank you. And yeah, being concrete, I think it's important. It has been said, the right to repair, spare parts availability. All that is important. I would like, however, to really to frame a bit the conversation, because after all, we're having this conversation because used goods have a lower environmental impact than the new goods. And the thing here is that if we are in the context of the Paris agreements and the climate crisis and everything, what I see that is today, the big disconnect is actually when we as consumers go shopping, our budget is limited by the money we have. But it's not limited by actually the carbon emissions that we have as citizens. So we know the carbon budget that Europe has. We know the carbon budget that the countries have. Now, if we as citizens, we would have actually an indication of what is our personal carbon budget, not only the capital, but also the carbon budget, it would be so much easier to choose between a reuse and a new item, because a new item has a huge environmental footprint in comparison with a reused item. And how that translates into policy is that this needs to be reflected in prices. So we need to have actually an estimation of how much can we consume and the impact that has. And something that I see missing so far is actually translating that to the prices. And it doesn't need to be taxes on new goods in comparison with used goods. There's other tools there, but for as long as buying used goods is more expensive or is more difficult than buying new goods, people are going to go to the cheapest and fastest option. And I'm afraid that is the root of the problem.
You talk about other tools. What do you mean?
Sorry, other tools on?
You said that there are also tools than just taxes, for example,
sure.
or VAT on products. What other tools are you thinking about?
So, for example, there's traceability. I mean, I think it should be traceability on if, for example, we are working with small companies that are taking used goods, and they're able to trace all the materials that go in a used computer from a second hand, third hand, fourth hand, etc. How can it be that the producers themselves cannot start the traceability from the start and pass this traceability onto the reuse market? That is one example. Another example is, as I said, start working on individual carbon budgets. So if I have a carbon budget of, say, X tons of CO2 per year, then I need to decide whether I prefer to buy a used laptop or a new laptop, knowing that if I buy a new laptop, then I might not be able to afford a flat screen, a mobile phone, and an electric bike on top of that. And I think these are other alternatives.
Mm-hmm. Paul, I'd like to turn to you now. Rosa, you mentioned in your introduction that the availability of spare parts, the fact that manufacturers are not always helping is definitely a problem. So how could, for example, policymakers in Brussels help you out in that? What are you expecting from policymakers, from the European Commission, from the European Parliament, to make your life easier also, and really promote those second-hand goods and make it also easier for you to have access to spare parts and really unleash this circular e-commerce?
Well, sure. I think the big challenge we need to solve is that repairing and helping the whole circularity economy must be lucrative to both the manufacturers, the vendors, and the resellers. And currently we are in a situation where, in a kind of way, all parts or all areas kind of fight against each other because the manufacturers are interested in selling more to their vendors. The vendors do not want second-hand goods, etc. So in the big picture, I believe that it must be lucrative to everybody. And in the best scenario, the manufacturer or the vendor of the new goods would themselves go into circularity to keep their profits. I think this is like the end scenario where we need to go to, but currently we need companies like us to do the jobs because the others don't. Speaking about spare parts, I think manufacturers, at that point, I believe a regulation would be the right thing, that manufacturers need to offer spare parts for the goods that they manufacture at reasonable market prices. As it was said before, currently spare parts sometimes are offered, but then they are crazy expensive. Sometimes they cost as much as the product itself. I believe we see this, for example, in smartphones, where when the display breaks, you have to pay like $300 for the display, when you can get the phone as a new price for $400, which is unreasonable. So I believe manufacturers should be forced to offer spare parts at right prices. I think this would help a lot. And also, I think when there would be a regulation as such, this would be an incentive for the manufacturers themselves to think about how they could buy back used products and then resell those instead of just destroying them and selling new.
Rosalina, is that something that the Commission is considering, having manufacturers provide spare parts at a reasonable price? How can you also force them into that, as Paul was mentioning, that mindset of circularity in the end?
Yes, thank you. This is a question that we have been pondering upon for quite some time. Already this provision that we included the availability of spare parts is a provision that we already included in the Waste Framework Directive in the part on prevention, where actually there is this provision where indeed, as part of the prevention measures, the availability of spare parts should be encouraged. But of course, I mean, it's a general provision, and as far as this directive was adopted in 2018, it had to be transposed by 2020. So we still have to see what developments are there. But I understand from also the interventions that we heard today that indeed there could be further intervention that is needed. And of course, one of the elements is first to have transparency on the availability of spare parts, for how long if they are available, for how long they're available. We are also working with our Joint Research Center on this repairability index or this repairability score. So basically, really to inform consumers on how repairable the products that they buy are. Another very important element of this is also the availability of repair manuals. So, which is also in many cases very important, and there are also other aspects, of course, that may ensure that the product is repairable by various actors. So there are a number of issues, and how should we approach it? So first of all, it's very important to have transparency on this, that there is information whether this is the case or not, and then as regards, for instance, obligations that are to be imposed, this is something also that of course will be considered as part of our future initiatives. Also per product, because it's also like if we want to become very concrete, we have to also see what does this mean for specific products, and then these are all, as I said, elements that we are considering for our final proposals. But of course, it has to work for many different product categories, and also for indeed these links between the value chain are very important. So the producer of the goods, the vendor, or the repair organizations that are there, some of them are linked, let's say, to the producer, some are not, and then it's good to have also a bit more competition in that. Of course, at the same time, we see a lot of member states that are also supporting such reuse centra and refurbishment as part of their social policy measures, which is also very welcome, of course. But we understand that the economic model has to work as well. I mean, even without governmental intervention and subsidies on those activities. So this is all elements that we are looking at, and as I said, the inputs like that are super useful.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So I'm just going to look at the questions that have already been submitted by the audience. There is one to you, Thibaut, actually. I'm gonna read it. So, what more could platforms like yours do to boost circular item sales?
We're trying our best. This is our job to promote circular economy and make it the new normal over new. So demand is not a problem. I think it's pretty clear, like everywhere in Europe, people want to consume better. They are looking for opportunities to repair, to purchase refurbished products. Though we need to keep having in mind that the trust gap between consuming a new product and a second-hand product and refurbished is still big in the consumer mind. And this is because, you're afraid when you consume a refurbished product that it will break at some point, and that you will be on your own if there is a problem. So our job as a third-party marketplace is to make sure the time to solve an issue is very, very short, even shorter than on new. So we are working on innovating a lot on that in order to make the time to solve very, very short. We are working on our own right now because manufacturers don't have to provide their spare parts. but to empower our sellers to access to compatible spare parts to repair the product and make them go back to life and to the market. So we have an innovation lab where we have more and more hardware engineers testing components every day in order to make them available to the markets. Of course, that would be way more easy to have those spare parts from manufacturer at the reasonable prices. But the last but not least, we are also working on a repair platform because again, the goal is to extend the life of tech product, right? The problem is the production of new products. So circularity, we're working on it. I think we all agree we need the spare parts available for everyone. No constraints, otherwise the manufacturer will block and control the streams and they will make it not available basically. Make sure the prices are affordable. Once that's been done, it's going to change the faces of circular economy for sure. And I'm pretty confident that we can reach the same level of the car market where 70% of the car now are being purchased used. It's because spare parts is a big part of the business, even for manufacturers. It's normal to have access to spare parts. So this is critical.
Thank you. So we have other question from the audience. I'll take one. What is the environmental impact of goods sold online compared to in shops for secondhand? And how can consumer know and better understand the impact of what they buy? Maybe I'll ask you, Paul. Is there any way that, for example, on your platform you explain what's the I don't know, CO2 carbon footprint of the product that you sell compared to a new one, for instance?
But yeah, very good question, and we are actually looking into this right now. We do not have this number in place yet, but just yesterday we had a meeting where we spoke about that we want to get to average numbers because it's not really possible to make it exact because we have so many different one-of-a-kind products. It's obvious that a used product is more sustainable than a new one, but I do not have an exact number right now. Maybe Thibaut or Jean-Marc might have some numbers.
I can give you a number if you can hear me now.
Sure.
Let's take an example at the last iPhone, the iPhone 13 that was released a few months ago. So basically, the CO2 impact of the production of an iPhone 13 until it lands to the hand of the first customer is 54 kilograms of CO2 emission. 54, right? If you repair and refurbish the product heavily, meaning that you change the screen and the battery, which are the two components that are emitting the most CO2 emission, you will generate maximum 20 kilograms of CO2 emission. So basically, when you're choosing a refurbished product, in that case, an iPhone 13 refurbished over a new one, you're saving at least 34 kilograms, which is huge, really, really huge.
And if I can jump on that.
Yeah, sure. I was about to give you the floor.
Thank you. Then it's like, how do we translate that into the economic incentive for consumer, and so that the market reflects that? Because yes, in this case, you see, we have half the environmental impact, which is huge. And again, this is for like a major actual refurbishment. So the question is really like, how do we address actually that we need to turn the environmental impact into an economic incentive for consumers for things to change, but also for producers and retailers to change. Right?
Indeed, and on this question also of how we better inform consumer about the impact of product and the advantage of secondhand product, the Commission has been also floating the idea of having a digital product passport, an initiative on sustaining green claims, because obviously we've seen a jungle of labels on sustainability, eco labels. Appearing in the last years. So Rosalina, I'd like to ask you, how do we create trust also in these secondhand products? And can, for example, the digital product passport or the initiative on sustaining green claims can help on that? What concretely would that mean for consumers?
Right. So, as I said, I mean, where we start from is of course the new product, and this is the product that we would like to make more durable, more repairable, where we would like to give information what if there are spare parts available, as I said, repair manuals. So, and then this is information that, of course, the digital passport may contain. We are still, as I said, working on it, so we cannot be definitive at this stage, but it's exactly all these details that can also be part of the information that accompanies the product that would be very useful when the product needs to be repaired. So, but of course, the first is one thing is reuse, where, for instance, the more durable products we are that don't break down easily and are more qualitative, the more trust the consumers will have also to buy them secondhand. Even if we look at our own purchasing behavior of secondhand goods, it's always the choice goes to the qualitative things much easier than to those that otherwise, even when buying new, we would have a perception, well, this may break down or may tear in quite a short time. So this quality of the goods, the quality aspect is super important, and of course all the information that would go together with the product by the digital product passport. Of course, here we are talking about also different products with some. The example of cars was given, which are indeed where the market is quite developed. They're also of quite high value themselves, price as well. So there really it makes sense, a lot of sense economically also for people to engage in repair. And indeed here the question is, how do we bring this kind of model which was developed for those goods down for goods that may have relatively lower weight in people's budgets, and then that also may get a bit of lower attention than and then here of course the environmental awareness helps a lot, but if it's not matched well with economic kind of incentives and getting these economic rights, we may not get there very easily. So with all those measures that will come, we will actually try to make it much easier to repair and to reuse.
Mm-hmm. I'd like also to take another question from Slido. Ilya Neudecker asks, is it actually possible to regulate manufacturers' behavior through the waste legislation? And should it not be up to internal market law to manage these issues? I don't know, Rosalina, if you want to take it. Otherwise, maybe John Mark. Maybe you can start with you, John Mark.
Very quickly, waste legislation deals with waste. And here we're talking about products and product design. And I think one of the challenges of the last years is to try to look at circular economy, product design, everything from a waste perspective. And of course, waste is very important, how we deal with it, how we design for recyclability. But if something is lacking today in European policies, is actually eco-design policies and really design for circularity and creating reuse infrastructure. And that cannot be done with waste legislation.
Mm-hmm. And indeed,
I think.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
I just want to add something. I think the regulation is moving in the right direction, but it's missing something that is important. I think if you put yourself in the shoes of a citizen, if you are making the extra mile to repair or to put your product back in the circular economy, it's already taking an effort. So you have to make it frictionless. That's really important. And sometimes repair is not an option because, for example, I have 2 kids. My washing machine dies. I need to use it. I can't wait for 3 weeks to repair it. But maybe a repair shop would be able to buy it back from me, wait for the components to refurbish it, and then sell it back to the market, which works as well because the product will live longer. So it's important to consider repair and refurbished because they work together, they're complementary. If you constrain it to the repair, then people won't adopt it at scale because if it's too long to repair, then they are not going to wait, even for a smartphone, even for a tablet, a computer. You need to empower those repair and those refurbisher at the same time, because sometimes when repair doesn't work, refurbish work, and it works both sides.
And on that, I also had a question on that, and I see one as well on Slido on that issue, on the question of rentals and leasing. In that sense, so the question from Susan Evans reads, supporting more use of secondhand and refurbished goods, and how could e-commerce business and platforms do more to make, for example, leasing, rentals more mainstream and used? Is that something that, for example, you're considering at Revive, doing like rental or leasing of secondhand goods? Paul?
Yeah, we did test to go into this route, and it's we do it quite often with, for example, movie sets, TV productions, streaming providers. It's more like a B2B thing for us. When they need it for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, that's very appealing. Speaking about the end consumer, for our products or our price points, it did not really hit the interest of the customers, and also for us, it's not as lucrative because from a company, from an offering standpoint, we need to be lucrative. The cash that's needed to get the product to the customer is quite intensively, and the customer is not willing or able to pay as much per month as it would need for us to make sense from an economic standpoint. And also when the customer is using, for example, a sofa for 12 months, he's almost paying the full price. So I think that there are some obstacles in the way to make it reasonable for both ends. I believe when a customer is wishing to use a product for a long time, like a pro rata plan is more interesting, where we can work with partners. On the other hand, what would be very helpful if there would be more partners that do the financing of those leasing products, because for us as a vendor, it's not really possible to give out the products on a reasonable monthly paying point. I think the market, it's not where it could be. With cars, it's way different. For like smaller consumer goods, it didn't work for us that good.
John Mark, what do you think about this new rental models? Is that something that should be developed, or isn't it the priority at the moment? Should we focus more on other legislative initiative or other ways of regulating the market?
For me, it's clearly a priority in the sense that, as Paul has explained today, it looks like every kind of small company has to set up their own infrastructure in order to provide the financing, the logistics for rentals and leasing systems. And that is challenging. And it's not only for the consumer good market. We talk about packaging, we talk about other markets. So what we need to be aware here is that we're creating a new ecosystem, and this ecosystem is new infrastructure. And the reuse infrastructure today is almost completely missing when we look at consumer market goods. And I think that doesn't not only require legislation, but it does require some framing in order to create the incentives and the financing and the legal framework for this new infrastructure to emerge that would allow someone to very quickly, as Thibaut was saying, like replace a phone that is broken with someone that is completely new, whilst the other one is being repaired. Well, I can actually put my used packaging back into circulation, where I could actually buy stuff online that is reused, etc. But the infrastructure is not there, and I think something needs to be created. And for me, information is important, digital passports are important, etc. Availability of spare parts is important. We need all of this, but we also need to think about what infrastructure do you need in order for the whole economy to move to reuse at scale. And that I think legislation also plays a role.
Mm-hmm. So Rosalina, I'd like to maybe if you'd like to react to that. What is the Commission going to do to indeed put in place that infrastructure that Jean-Marc was talking about?
Thank you for this. I mean, the Commission, of course, we have a lot of role in first giving the right signals, ensuring that, as I said, that the legislative framework is there to make the products repairable, reusable, and then this is where we are really going from end-of-pipe solutions, waste legislation, towards internal market and product legislations. We are ourselves aware about the limits of let's say, where waste legislation implemented by member states are. So we are very well aware of that. At the same time, we would also can give some additional stimulus with that. For instance, we are thinking about waste prevention targets. We are thinking about both on packaging and then more general on other types of waste, municipal waste, the ones that we produce as consumers. So there are certain elements and levers that we can use there, but of course the product internal legislation is the most important one, and also the role of the member states, because when we are talking about building infrastructure, the member states have a lot of means to ensure that reuse systems are supported. I mentioned the social economy, which is where there are very good models, both to create sustainable jobs and to boost the reuse and repair. But what we are talking, I think, here is also not only, as I said, the more subsidized part of the economy, but about ensuring that the economic model gets viable by itself. Of course, it could be a bit of a more longer term goal, but we see that many things are working for some products. So for some products, and then the easier the products are to repair, the better it works, because it also means indeed less hours that one is busy with a certain product, and then also does not makes it affordable for consumers as well. This is what we would like to look at. So to what extent we can indeed make sure that this reuse infrastructure is not only a matter of government support, policies, but also that economic actors along the chain are interested in doing that. And we know that there are a lot of small enterprises, even micro enterprises in the reuse and repair sector, and this is also a very viable part of the chain that we also want to make sure that flourishes. And then it's not an easy act to do so, but and there is no silver bullet. So there is no one. We build infrastructure, many levers that we have to, as such, put at EU level. And then there is also a lot of action that has to be taken both by the business side, by the producers who should have some responsibility on this as well, and also by member states as well, and other actors. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. And also another question that we haven't and topic we haven't addressed yet is and that e-commerce platforms are sometimes if not often confronted with, is the question of unsold goods, unsold new items. For example, France has put in legislation a ban on the destruction of unsold goods. Is that something, for example, that the Commission would be considering, Rosalina, since you just said that waste reduction and prevention targets are something that the Commission is thinking about? is a complete ban on the destruction of unsold goods something that could be considered as well to be put in legislation? I guess that would also make it maybe easier, that make it easier for this product to be sold, for example, as secondhand or reused as well.
We have set our intention clear with the destruction of unsold goods. In general, this is not sustainable, and we would like to take measures to address the problem. How exactly this will play in real life is what we are looking at now. Because, of course, the whole idea is that if you have something valuable, functional, good, be it electronic, be it textiles, be it apparel, whatever, it should not go to waste. That's certain. What we have to understand very well is why certain goods go to waste, how much are they, and what would be the best. Because an outright ban, I mean that's very good. But if some goods really cannot be sold, whatever efforts are made, of course we cannot store them indefinitely. But of course here I'm just bringing this a little bit to the extreme to see what the point is. But we are looking at what would be the best and then who should take the obligation, like who should apply this ban. So we have to very good not to destroy unsold goods, to use them, reuse them, and so on and so forth. But we have to get the detail right, and this is what we are looking at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to add a question to Rosalina, if I may. From a practical standpoint, from our experience, one of the reasons why unsold goods are destroyed and not donated is because, at least for Germany, this applies. Donating a product generates the need to pay taxes for a company. So for a company, it's more lucrative to destroy the product instead of donating it, because when we donate, value-added tax applies. Is this something you're looking into and going to change? Because I think this is very essential. Also, for example, Amazon has a big blog post about the same issue where they address the exact same thing.
Mm-hmm. I don't know, Thibaut or Jean-Marc, if you wanted to comment maybe on that question as well, because we'll have to wrap up in 2 minutes.
Simple comment on my side. I think, overproduction is very bad, that we all agree on. So I think the ban is the first good step, at least in France, where it's in place.
Has it changed something for you concretely since this is in place?
To be completely honest, we're fighting against sellers putting overproduced product unsold. The real issue we should all be focused on, top priority, is how to make products circulate for a long run, not helping manufacturer to deal with their overstock in order to produce even more new products. So that's my point of view, very candid, but
No, thank you. Maybe Jean-Marc, a last point on that question.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think a ban would be necessary, but I agree with you. That's a symptom of a system that is not working. If these goods would be valuable, would be repairable, etc., and actually would be accounting for the environmental impact, I think it wouldn't make economic or common sense to destroy them. The problem is that today, in the system as it is, that's what makes sense, but that's why we need to change the system, and symptoms like this then should disappear. So a ban would be useful, but I think it just scratches the surface of really the general malaise.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. It's now time to wrap up. Thank you very much all for your great discussion. Maybe just a few takeaways from today's discussion. Well, we've talked a lot about the right to repair, and that there is definitely some need for regulation and legislative action on that, and on making spare parts, for example, available. But also that consumers need to have access to more and clearer information about, what's the environmental footprint really of products, and what's the added value in that sense, in the sustainability added value of secondhand products, but also that e-commerce platform are indeed playing an increasing role in this market, in making those products available, but also making them known, and that also there are also some responsibility that come with making sustainable secondhand product available on those markets. So thank you very much to you for this great interesting discussion this morning. Thank you to the audience for the great questions. I'm sorry we didn't have the time to go through them all, but maybe you can, I don't know, tag our speakers on Twitter and reach out if you want to have more concrete answers to your questions in the future. Don't hesitate to send us feedback by writing to us using the email address live@politico.eu. And you can also check our website for upcoming events. We have a great lineup until the end of the year. And last but not least, I'd like to thank our presenter for today, eBay, and also invite you to our Sustainable Future Summit that will take place in person in Brussels on November the 30th and December 1st. Make sure you save the date in your agenda. Thank you and have a great day.